that other sites might make sense for that, then the city council can make those decisions through the normal process that it does, through deliberations and whatnot, and make a decision as a city council to take another site and apply the senior housing overlay. But it only applies to this site now, and it's highly needed. So there's a lot of misrepresentations that are said about this. This site has a commitment to build 20% of the units as affordable housing. That's in the initiative. It can't be changed or modified. It's not some kind of thing that we're saying we'll do, we won't do. I mean, my company, Ponderosa Homes, has built hundreds, probably over the years since the 1960s, thousands of homes in San Jose. So we have to do what we say we're going to do. That's what we do. That's why people buy homes from us, because we do what we say we're going to do. Okay? Yeah. So that affordability at 20% is a very low, and moderate. It exceeds the affordability requirements of the city of San Jose, and it exceeds the percentage of what the city of San Jose requires. So we're above what the law requires in the city, and that's in the initiative. Not only that, they have to be built by a specific number of building permits. The first one has to be built, and before a specific number of building permits, the last one has to be completed. So in the middle of the project, all that affordable housing has to get delivered. Okay. The other thing that has been stated about this project is that it circumvents all the city's policies for planning and review and all that, and that's a falsehood as well. This initiative is only a legislative act. So after this initiative passes, if it gets a general plan amendment and a rezoning, we still have to go through a tentative map process with the city, which they can make us do an EIR. And even though we've already done one, they'll probably make us do another one. So we have to do an EIR. They can condition us to do all kinds of things. We have mitigation built into this, okay? But they can make us do more mitigation. So they can make us do a lot of things that come after the legislative process here, okay? So there's a lot of things that are being said about this project that it won't do that it normally has to do. And so it could be a long time. We hope not. The city could get in the way of that process. We hope they won't, because if the voters say they need housing, which they do, the median price of a home in San Jose, you know what that is right now? $1.3 million. Okay? $1.3 million for a median price home in the city of San Jose. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds pretty crazy to me. How long do you think this economy is going to continue to go when the median priced home in San Jose costs $1.3 million? Okay? My prediction, the cost of housing is what's going to turn this market. That's where it's going to go. It's not going to be, Google decides to, cut jobs and move them out. Well, they're moving them out. But the fact is that nobody can afford to live here anymore is what's going to change this thing. So we're doing our best to build housing, because that's what we do. We build housing. And people need this housing. We're ready to deliver it, but we need your support. It's very simple. It's a really simple subdivision like other subdivisions in this city. It's nothing unique. It's nothing different. It's just housing. So please support us. Thank you. And we're here to answer questions too. I think there's another presentation about this.
Are you finished with your presentation right now?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. If you have questions, we'll be able to answer them in a few minutes. Thank you. Allison, I'll take this down right now. Yeah, we'll take this down right now. Okay. Share that. Thanks.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm known for my loud voice.
Will our voices come through on the video if we don't use the mic?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I'll try to be as loud as I can. So, hi everyone. My name is Mackenzie Mossing. I live just over the hill in Almaden Valley, and I also work for the Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society.
And I'm Alice Kaufman, and I am a Legislative Advocacy Director with Committee for Greenfield Hills.
Great. So I wanted to start off with a little bit of an anecdote. How many of you are familiar with the home that's being proposed over the Los Paseos neighborhood on the Santa Teresa Hill site over there? So I won't go into too much of a detail just to keep this short, but there's a fairly large home that's being proposed on this ridge. It would overlook the community. It abuts the community garden, so naturally a lot of people are concerned with the project. So some people from the community reached out to us, being the environmental advocates that we are, and we took a look at the project, and we determined, wow, this site is actually really critical for wildlife movement. So animals are moving from Tulare Hill under the Santa Teresa Road up to Santa Clara County. So what we did is we engaged with the community, we reached out to city staff, told them our concerns. They held a public meeting. About 100 people came to that meeting. Anyone here go to that meeting? Yeah, it's a pretty good turnout, right? So at this meeting, everyone got to ask questions about the project, explain their concerns, they got to make suggestions about how the project could be modified. We also sent a letter, which I put on the back table, showing all the evidence about the wildlife corridor that's there. So that's just an example of how the public process works for planning right now. And this initiative will change all of that. And it is not just about Evergreen, it's about the entire city. So, Craig, our organizations have opposed this initiative, and we've joined a group of nonprofits, veterans, seniors, millennials, environmental groups who are also all opposed to this for many of the reasons that we're going to bring up tonight. We have a website, stopthedeception.com. I highly encourage you to go visit it, check it out. And our committee is called Neighbors for Affordable Housing and Open Space.
Next.
Okay, right. So we're going to tag team on this. So this is, can everybody see it looks kind of small from where I am, but this is our list of people who have come out publicly opposing. And one thing that I want to highlight is all of the city council is opposed. I mean, these are people who don't agree on anything, right? They're the pro-business, pro-jobs people are opposed because this is taking employment land and converting it to residential. The pro-housing people are opposed because this weakens the San Jose's affordable housing requirements. The pro-environment people are opposed because they're concerned about the threat to Coyote Valley. The residentialist people are opposed because they're worried about traffic impacts. So they're all opposed. Everybody that we talk to really finds something to dislike about the initiative. Next one.
And it all really comes down to three reasons: deception, dollars, and disaster. We'll get through to these. I'll try to keep it short, but we'll touch all of these points as we go through tonight. So go ahead, Greg. So this initiative, this is what it looks like, by the way. This is what you're voting on. 367 pages. In this initiative, they've snuck in something that's called a senior housing overlay. Essentially what this is a loophole. It's a new land use that can be applied to any underutilized employment lands in the city. You'll notice this map here. Everything in blue is employment lands. Everything in black, the city has determined that is underutilized, but still there's no definition for what that is.
And this is, let me just point out, so this is the Evergreen site. This is where, you see the similarity in the shape, that's what that is. And this also in black, very ominous, I think it looks, is North Coyote Valley. And we are right here, right? We're like right there right now? Yeah. Okay.
So this overlay could be applied to Coyote Valley. So go ahead with that. So the city just put out a report. It was done by independent consultants, and they reviewed it on Tuesday. And they've identified over 3,000 acres of open space that this could affect. And that does not include all the lands of strip malls, of low-rise office buildings, you name it, any land that employs people. That wasn't included in that acreage. So really, every district in the city will be affected by this. This is not just about Evergreen. And like I said, it's 367 pages thick. And it changes the general plan to make the project and the overlay conform with the general plan. And let me just say, this general plan was the product of thousands of community members, hundreds of meetings. It really was the product of the community, not just the city council. So this is something that we've decided was responsible growth for our city, and this changes all of that.
Actually, before we leave the slide, I want to focus on this, that the fact that the underutilized employment lands is not defined in the initiative. This is something that the city report called out as being a concern, and that's why they're sort of, they analyzed, the report that they did analyzed the impacts based on the assumption that only the vacant land would be affected, this could only apply to the vacant land. But they said that, a broad interpretation, and if it goes to litigation, then that's a judge that's going to decide that. It's not going to be us, it's not going to be the proponents, it's not going to be anybody else, it's going to be a judge. And so that means that we simply don't know what this definition means or what lands it will apply to. But they said that all but a few high-rises in downtown could theoretically be included here. That's obviously a worst-case scenario, but it's something you have to take into account when you're voting on the initiative. And so this is why we say that this weakens San Jose's affordable housing requirements, okay? And this really turns on the definition of on-site affordable housing. So if they were to build on-site affordable housing, this is what you would get, okay? This is 20%, and it's 12% goes to low income, 8% goes to very low income. What this initiative proposes is just doesn't meet the qualifications for on-site. I'll get to that in the next slide. But basically, what this does is it lowers the 8% very low income down to 6%. There is no low income requirement here, and then the remaining 14% of it is moderate income. And moderate income, you see here, it's $102,000 plus for a family of 2, or $128,000 plus for a family of 4. And both low income and very low income are less than $100,000. Moderate income basically is area median income. And so what this really does is it means that only 6% of this is going to be affordable for families that are earning less than $100,000 a year.
Did everybody understand the slide?
Yeah. We can go through it with questions more detailed if you have.
And so another way in which it weakens the affordable housing requirements is that it exempts senior housing overlay projects. So that is the Evergreen project plus any future senior housing projects that would be built pursuant to the overlay. Okay, it exempts them from requirements as to when the affordable units would have to be built. Right now, the city of Bronx requires concurrent building of affordable housing. There are very strict timing limitations that kick in, and the initiative simply says, as long as you specify what the timing is going to be in the specific plan, then there's no other further requirement, and that means it's wide open. Okay, and what that also means is that there's no guarantee the affordable housing would ever be built. The other thing is that it allows for-sale units to be built without resale controls. And, from my reading of the initiative, it looks like that means that somebody could buy it at the affordable price, turn around and sell it at market rate. I read the initiative, and I don't see anything that would stop someone from doing that.
And here, all right?
Yeah.
Do you need the microphone? Or
No,
you
Everyone
okay?
cares.
Okay.
So what
If anybody can't hear, hold on a second. If anybody can't hear, please raise your hand, and we'll get these guys to
try to speak louder.
speak louder.
Yeah. So the reason that our groups are involved is because of Coyote Valley. Alice has mentioned this before. This giant, black, ominous figure right here, this is your backyard, right? This is Coyote Valley. It's critical for wildlife traveling between the large mountain ranges. It's critical for flood control. It absorbs an immense amount of water during storm seasons that would otherwise flood into our neighborhoods. What this initiative does is it opens up the door for sprawling subdivisions all over North Coyote Valley because that land is zoned for industrial use. And that would mean more people driving down Santa Teresa, more people hopping on 101. Our traffic would just be a mess. And that would also really impact the wildlife that relies so heavily on this area.
And I again want to point out that the reason why we're so concerned, particularly for Coyote Valley, is that again that definition of vacant, of not vacant, but underutilized employment lands. Again, there is no definition, but Coyote Valley is zoned for is not zoned but designated in the general plan exactly the same as the Evergreen parcel, and it's mostly vacant. So when we look at these two parcels. And we ask ourselves, if a North Coyote Valley landowner were to try to do this conversion, and even if the city said no, and then maybe they sued the city, how would a judge decide? Well, you don't know. You don't know how a judge is going to decide, but it scares us. And that's why we're concerned. And this is something else that came out in the city report. Thanks. All right, I'll just talk in the dark.
You really sets the mood.
So in the city report, they stated that the preference for veterans doesn't seem to be enforceable. That's something that was stated in the city report. It's not something that I have personal knowledge for, but it's obviously that's a concern as well. And they're saying that it might even not be allowable under the law because of housing discrimination laws. You can't discriminate when you provide affordable housing to a particular group, and the qualifications for that are uncertain. It's uncertain whether this would be able to happen.
And another big flag here is it could cost us $1 million. So in the city report, they said that this would cause a general fund deficit of $17 million per year. Let me repeat that. $17 million a year. That's money that goes to our parks. It goes to our police department that's already overstretched. It goes to our fire. It goes to our libraries. It goes to our community centers. So that's $17 million less that we would have every year for these services that we rely on and depend on. That's a huge hit. So I took this quote from Scott Herhold. The Mercury News has published several op-eds about this if you're interested in reading up on this. And there's also, since the initiative is so ambiguous, we don't know if there will be any lawsuits that preclude this or that come out of this. So taxpayers will have to pick up the tab on that as well. You can skip over this. If we have questions, we'll come back to this. And it rewrites the general plan. So in these first few pages, they've taken 18 different policies and they said, as Dave Bushell said it the other day at the meeting, thanks Dave, they've gotten pretty creative. Either it says except for senior housing development at the beginning of it, or it says it in the middle of it, or it says it at the end. Either way, they've taken 18 policies that are meant to ensure a high quality of life in San Jose, walkable, bikeable communities, concentrating growth in infill areas, and they said except for senior housing. So it doesn't apply to them.
Sorry, I asked Greg to try and get the lights back on. So let me see. Should I go through this?
Yeah, well, we can come back to this. This is from the city report. It shows all the different strategies it's not consistent with.
Okay, so now we're on the traffic slide. Right, so the city report also found...
Wow, it is.
The light show. Faster, Greg. Yeah, it almost be like a rock concert.
That's great.
Okay, so the city report also found that it would increase traffic, and basically the reason for that is because this encourages sprawl. So, you think about it, this parcel in Evergreen is sort of way out on the eastern edge of the city, just like North Coyote Valley is way out on the southern edge of the city. When you put people in homes, way out there where there aren't the public transit options, they have to drive. They really don't have any other options. And so then they get in their cars, and then it creates, it makes the traffic worse. And, as environmental groups, this is a concern for us because it creates air pollution, contributes to climate change, and so on. And the argument is that it's not going to create so much traffic because these are seniors and they don't drive as much, but because senior is defined as one member of the household has to be age 55 or over. I'm 51. I don't think that in 4 years I'm suddenly going to stop driving. I'm certainly not going to quit my job. I'm not going to have to keep on working for at least a little bit longer, right? And so we have people, particularly here in the Bay Area, more and more. We have people who are technically of retirement age who are still working, who are still driving on the roads during the commute. And if you only have one person in the household who has to be of that age, you could have several younger members of the household who have the driving patterns of younger people and are still on the roads during rush hour.
And this is bad for the environment. So they have done some form of their own environmental review for the project, but this actually doesn't conform with CEQA because the whole idea behind CEQA is, like I said earlier, you involve the whole community. Everybody gets to have a say. With this, everybody out in Evergreen is not going to have a say on the project. So it really does not conform with CEQA, and we don't know what impacts it would have to the environment because we can't do that type of review. And in general, sprawling development, we've learned this over the years. I mean, the way our city was built decades ago, we've learned, based on what we're experiencing right now, that sprawl is just not good. It's not good for the environment, and it's not good for quality of life. And it sets a bad precedent, really, what this does. So if this passes and other developers are watching, what are they going to come up with next year? What are they going to stick in your neighborhood next year? It's going to come closer and closer to home. What other laws are they going to exempt themselves from? We don't want this to become the new norm for planning. There's a reason we have a general plan. It guides responsible growth. It includes the community. We don't want this to become the new norm for planning.
And we can say also that we've been told by city staff that there was at least one developer who has already said, if this passes, I'm going to do my own initiative. So we're not just this is not a scare tactic. We're not just making this up, right?
So this is just some quotes from the op-eds that were published on this. I encourage you to go check them out. And I'll leave you with one more example. How many of you are really big fans of high-speed rail?
Yeah.
What? I figured that'd be the response. Especially in this neighborhood, right? High-speed rail was a ballot measure. It was voted on by voters, and now it's coming right through your neighborhood. This is the exact same idea right here. Voters vote on it, and once you realize all these things are going to impact your life, you can't do anything about it. It's law. This is changing law.
I'd also like to end up by saying that, we're not opposed to housing. Yeah. We're not opposed to affordable housing, and we're not opposed to housing for seniors. What we are opposed to is the bypassing of the public process. This is something that as environmental advocates, we work on every day, and we really rely on the community participation and on the fact that when the community gets involved, you have an opportunity to get a better project. You have an opportunity to get a project that's better for the environment, that's better for the community, that's better in a lot of ways. And we really believe in that. And just so on principle, honestly, I personally just oppose development by initiative. I think it is a bad idea. I'm going to ask Mackenzie to hold that up one more time.
Yeah.
How many voters do you think are going to read that before they vote yes or no?
No. So some light bedtime reading if you want to look at it. Really.
So the way I feel is, there's been some, claims, that what the city's report, obviously, saying that might be, false, and then, other people come back and say, these other statements are false. If there's confusion, if there are conflicting views, if people aren't in agreement about what this means, let's not take a chance. Thanks.
Thank you all. And thank you, Greg and Karen, for inviting us.
Thank you all.
Yeah, we can have a seat up here.
So, I'm just a home builder. I'm also a licensed real estate. So I'm a home builder and a licensed real estate broker. So I can't misrepresent things and tell lies. But other people can do that. People that don't have an interest in this project, people that don't build housing, okay, people that oppose almost all. So almost everything you saw in their presentation was a misrepresentation or a falsehood. If you read that document, it's not that complicated. You can read it. Half of that document is just a specific plan. The initiative general plan modifications are a small part of it. The specific plan is incredibly well thought out. We spent a fortune on a full environmental study that is exactly the same as an EIR.
That is not
exactly the same.
You cannot make that. You cannot say that you're making false statements and say that what you did was exactly the same as an EIR, because it is not.
It is exactly the same. I just can't call it an EIR because I'm not a city, but it has all the same.
If it were an EIR, it would have to follow different standards. I'm sorry, Jeff, you can't. I'm not going to sit here and let you make that statement.
It's true. Just like that.
You know what? One thing you said I agree with. Read this.
Read the document.
Read
it's very straightforward.
And then make up your mind.
Yep.
Can you read the passage from the initiative that says that it specifically is only for this one lot or parcel of land in Evergreen and won't affect anything else?
Can I find it right now? No,
Yeah.
I can't find it right now. It's in there. It's only this property. This is the only property.
True.
This is the only property.
All right.
I don't.
Go ahead, fine.
Yeah, here we go.
It's in there. It's
The
only
senior
this property.
housing overlay. This overlay allows senior residential development on appropriate underutilized employment lands. Development of senior housing projects with this overlay. Initially, this overlay is applied to one location.
One location.
And then
It can't be applied to any other location unless... No, it can't be
The
applied to
city
any
may
other
undertake
location
additional
unless
study to
the
determine
city
other
council...
locations.
It's right there. She just read.
Page
It says
15, everyone.
The city can take their own actions on other properties if they want, but that's
It's
the
right
city
there.
council.
She just
And
read.
I'd actually
City
like to
council.
respond to that and just say, I don't know about you, but say it's up to the city to decide whether or not they're going to do further development. It doesn't actually reassure me.
No,
We spend a lot of
So you
time
trust the city
trying
to
to
say
get
all the things that they say, but not in this
I trust the city to say that it's going to cost them $17 million a year. I trust them to know when it's going to cost them money. Who else would know that other than the city?
Can you explain then what the intent? What is the senior overlay? And what was intended by that?
The intention of creating the senior overlay was to minimize the changes to the general plan. So all of you know that the general plan was created in a way that pretty much prevents development from occurring in San Jose, unless it's on a high-rise in places where nobody wants one. In fact, the first project that's come up, 6-story project near Willow Granite, everybody's opposed to it. Okay, so that doesn't match. So that won't ever get built, right? Most everything in there won't get built. We just had to make some changes just to allow a senior project, right, 55 plus, which is governed by state law. One resident has to be 55. Your spouse can be less than 55. Your kids can't live there. Okay, it's just you and your kids. Go to the village.
That's not true.
It is entirely true. It's governed by state law.
But if they're
No.
So your kids can't
the
live
question
there.
is why did you include the overlay? What was the whole point of that?
The only way.
Why did you say it will only apply to the site, period?
It only
end?
applies to that site. That's what it said.
No, it doesn't. Why did you write only apply to the site?
Because we had if you don't do land use, you wouldn't understand that. You have to create policies and procedures in the
How about we
general
let
plan
the
to
community ask the
implement
question?
instead of you talking, can we ask questions?
Answer the question.
That's fair.
I was trying to answer a question, but you didn't let me answer the question.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
you
answered your question.
lied. But what about you're talking about the increase if they put employment property there, it's going to increase the traffic. You're saying that, and in the same breath you turn around and talk about all these homes with all these people living there. That's not going to increase the traffic.
What's allowed
55 and up doesn't drive. Their spouses don't drive.
What's allowed in the general plan is about 2.5 million square feet of commercial space. This is way lesser impact.
And how long and you said in the same, almost exact same sentence, well, it won't have anything there for 35 years.
It hasn't had anything for 30 years.
Okay, so why do you think it's going to change? Why is it suddenly going to get commercialized and turn into thousands of cars driving through there?
That's what it's zoned for. It certainly could become that.
So I have a question.
Just like initially.
It's all this property, including by the way, including the Coyote Valley, that's all zone industrial. That's all inside the Green Line. The Green Line was a community, right, process to create an urban growth boundary. So
and it was probably zoned that way to save it from people like you.
Everything in the urban growth
It's
boundary.
zoned that way to stop you from developing there.
Everything in the urban growth boundary was intended to be developed with residential or commercial. This property happens to be commercial. It's been undeveloped for 35 years.
For a reason, and that's where it needs to stay that way.
Undeveloped.
Somebody's got their hand up.
It's legally allowed to be developed.
Well, she's had her hand up first.
Yep.
I promise not to have any argument. I have only a question. They showed a list of all the organizations that support their argument. Who is supporting your argument?
He is.
Beyond yourself.
His paycheck
I think a
is.
lot of people
Do you have a list of that?
a lot of people that are interested in housing. Okay, you'll find out that a lot of people that are interested in housing is the biggest concern. It's the number one concern. So everybody says they're concerned about housing, but nobody wants to build it.
But these are not low income. They're not even moderate. They're not even $1 million houses. They're millions of dollar houses.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
The average sale price in this community in today's prices is less than the median. Okay? Less than the median in San Jose.
You've had your hand up so long. Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having both sides express. That's rare, so that's good. At first, I was wondering if you guys were competing or talking about different projects. So it's clear to me now you are talking about the same project. You made me a little nervous when you started by saying that the city has done a bad job. I've sat in many city planning meetings where housing is the number one issue, from San Francisco all the way down to San Jose. So I'm wondering, who's supporting you from the city in terms of this development? Who else is on your side to add to his question in terms of your desire to develop this property? That's the first question.
Well, first 35,000 people signed initiatives to put it on the ballot. So this is about giving the voters a choice. Okay,
I
that's what this
understand
is all
that,
about. You can vote against
it's
it
not fair
or
to
if
say,
you like.
first of all, the city has done a bad job, because I know it's the number one priority for them.
But then why
So I
are we
want to
having a crisis?
understand
Why are
what you're
we-
tying to any of the city officials. Are you working with any of them to develop this project? Is this something you've come up with on your own?
You know, interestingly enough, that property went through a full development process, including an EIR and Planning Commission recommendation for approval for for almost over 1,000 home units, right, in 2006 or 7, I believe. But the city failed to live up to its promise and take it to the city council to be heard. So it never went anywhere. So yeah, it was already approved for housing at one point, actually.
And then the landowner sued the city.
And he won because the city basically defaulted on their promise.
But this is
So you're taking it upon yourself as a developer, which makes sense. Who'll make money off this to bring this to the forefront?
I have no idea if we're going to make money on this. It's a very risky business. Seriously.
Housing in the Bay Area is not a risky business.
If you knew the business, you wouldn't say it.
And I have another question. If housing is such a crisis, which it is, why are you looking at only single-level story homes here when you've got projects that are being proposed for multi-story homes for low-income housing for elderly? Why are you? I'm just curious as to why.
Well, there's a couple reasons. First of all, there's incredible demand for that type of housing. Most people want single-family detached housing, including seniors.
What do you
There are polls, national polls, statewide polls. 85% of people. Do you live in a condo? Do you live in a high-rise? Do you live in a single-family home?
What difference does it make where I live?
It does matter. Most people live in single-family homes. Okay, and the most expensive way to provide affordable housing is in a high-rise. It's the most expensive kind of housing you can build.
That's probably news to a lot of developers that are proposing projects.
In fact, if you look at it, the city of San Jose has exempted the high-rises downtown from providing affordable housing because it's so expensive to do. So that's all you need to know about that.
I actually need to know a lot more. So if you've got statistics, I'd love to see them.
Maybe you can address it with her
Some of these surveys that are coming out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and the initiative is, the thing about the initiative is the voters are the ones that hold the power in the city.
You're right.
They delegate it to the city council, okay? But they hold the power. And so the voters, you're going to have, this is not a 10 days in advance of the hearing kind of notice, show up and listen to the presentation. This is a 9-month process where you get to look at this initiative. We get to come out and talk to you, and you can look at this initiative for 6 months before you decide if you want to vote for it. It's a very long and involved process.
When do we get a copy of it?
Any other review process. It's right on the city's website.
Next question, David.
Okay, well, first of all, I have a couple comments. One, and then I'll follow up with a question. The idea of it being industrial is to create a reverse commute, okay? The city is planning, right? And if we just let sprawl happen, okay, it causes all the congestion. And so the city has tried to plan areas for various purposes to minimize the traffic issues. About the housing, yes, it's cost efficient for you to make single-family homes. But what I would say about the housing in San Jose is that a lot of housing is being built, the high-rises and things, with the goal of making it near where people work. But the other thing is to keep in mind, yes, it's expensive because there's a scarcity of housing. But the city of San Jose has way more than its share of housing compared to the jobs. The jobs are where the cities make money. The housing costs them money. Okay? So, like a lot of people, I live down here and drove up to